Welcome to the Superhero of Love podcast. I am Bridget Fonger, and I wrote a book called Superhero of Love, Heal Your Broken Heart, and Then Go Save the World. My book is all about helping people love and be loved more than ever. I believe we all have a superhero of love inside of us. Yes, even you, superhero. And in this podcast, I talk to people who are all about helping us all tap into that superhero. May this episode make a difference for your heart. Let's get this party started. Hello, superheroes of love. Thank you for coming to this Thanksgiving podcast. Even if you're listening to this way after Thanksgiving, I just have to take this opportunity to say thank you. I haven't really properly thanked all my listeners. And if you've found this podcast, from the bottom of my heart, I just say thank you. And if you like it, please help us spread the word, bring more superheroes of love into the fold. If you know somebody that you'd like to have me interview, please tell me about that person, or please tell them about the podcast and have them contact me. I'm always looking for people who are out there in the world helping people love and be loved more. And thank you for being one of those people by listening to the podcast and opening your heart to it. You are a superhero of love out in the world. Thank you, sweet listener. Now, I hope you enjoy this podcast, my interview with Aimee Galicia Torres, an extraordinary documentary filmmaker. Welcome, superheroes. We're here with a very special person, Aimee Galicia Torres. I invited Aimee on this week, kind of impromptu because of Facebook. And I have to say that the magic of Facebook continues to enamor me to it, even though there are so many problems with it. And I am considering other platforms. But this is one of those things where Aimee and I met on Facebook just over a year ago. I was looking for somebody to shoot the Love Forward Talks events, and I went on a Facebook group called Inspired Women of Los Angeles, and I asked for recommendations, and Aimee was recommended to me, and I immediately loved her, and she did the most fantastic job. If you need a cinematographer anywhere in the world, because she has camera, will travel, has cameras, will travel anywhere, has a drone and will travel with drone too. But Aimee did an amazing job shooting the Love Forward Talks videos. And if you go over to the Superhero of Love YouTube channel, you'll see her beautiful work of shooting at an even very last minute. You did an amazing job, Aimee. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great opportunity.
It was such a special day. And because you were embroiled in that day from start to finish with what my work is about, of helping everybody open their hearts more, heal their hearts, be more able to love and be loved in the world, you understood why I immediately wanted to have you on the podcast when I saw that you posted this week the press conference that you did. Why don't you tell us why you held a press conference this week?
So there was a recent law that just passed under California. It's the AB 215, which is the Child Victims Act, which essentially extends the statute of limitations for survivors of child abuse. The statute of limitations used to be you had up to the age of 26, or I think up to 3 years upon discovery when you realized that the abuse was affecting you, to pursue like some sort of civil case. Now this AB 218 law that was just recently signed on October 13th, I believe, it allows survivors a 3-year window to be able to have more time to be able to get their day in court. So instead of 26, I believe you have up to the age of 40.
Oh, okay, great. And yeah, you're in your 30s, right?
I'm 34.
Okay.
And so this is such a great opportunity because a lot of people who are survivors of abuse and stuff like that, they don't really start to come forward till they're later in life, so this enables more time for them to essentially come out and file a suit or just be able to, get the justice that they needed.
And you were saying that it used to be 3 years from the moment that they discovered that it was affecting them. Like, that's just craziness to me, because obviously it was affecting them the whole time and whatever. Yeah. Okay. So when did you did you had you been recognizing it all this years, or did you have a come to Jesus moment where you were like, okay, I got to do something about this?
No, I've actually been coming forward about my case since I was a kid. I first told some family members and they really didn't do anything at the time. And then I told my mom, and then based on like the way the culture is, they don't really know how to handle the situation. And then I was waiting years and years for something to be done. And then eventually I was going through some depression and whatnot. And then in high school, I was talking to my school minister, and he was the one that essentially called the police and got this guy arrested.
Wow.
But, yeah. So I came forward with, I think I had just turned 17. So, and then that's when this priest got arrested. And then later, essentially, long story short, what happened with my case is, since they felt like it was his first time offense, and this was new. This was before all the Catholic Church scandals was coming forward. And coincidentally, when I did come forward, all this stuff started happening behind me. So he was trying to blame the fact that because of all these are happening, that I'm trying to capitalize on the Catholic Church scandal. I'm like 17 years old. I didn't even know about any of that. I just knew that what he did to me was wrong, and the way how my family handled it was wrong. And it was eating me up inside, and I had to tell someone. So essentially, they felt that he couldn't do any jail time. So the DA suggested he file for a misdemeanor. So he essentially got a misdemeanor of battery and like a $50 fine. He never had to register as a sex offender, and pretty much got to live out the rest of his life. He's still alive.
As a priest?
A priest? I don't know that. So in the LA Archdiocese is lists him as inactive. But what my lawyers came to find out, just recently, was that he was registered to an address in Los Angeles, which happens to be St. Basil's Church. Now, get this. One of my girlfriends was telling me, because her husband used to be an ex-seminarian. They said that this is a church where they happen to send priests with problems, whether it's alcoholism, pedophiles, and stuff like that. So it was kind of weird, because me and my lawyers were talking about it. I was like, why is there a lot of pedophile priests or priests that have sexually abused kids home to this address? So we're trying to find out the answers to that. So again, I tried to come forward again 7 years ago. I was Googling, looking for lawyers, and I found a lawyer, and then he was going to represent me and stuff. And I was 7 years ago, so it was right before my statute of limitations, the first one expired, and a year later he passed away unexpectedly.
The lawyer.
Yeah. So then my statute of limitations expired, and I was left with, what am I going to do? How am I going to be able to, have justice, be able to get my story out and have some healing? So I started kind of documenting myself through the years, like about what happened. Because, when you get older, you just want to have it there, so started documenting my story here and there. And then I just recently, weird story, I started working out with one of my friends. Her name is Christy Honore. And I just told her about this project I was working on. I want to someday, when I'm successful and whatever, I want this to be kind of like my, just something I wanted to show people that despite what happened to me, this is not going to define me. Right. And I told her about what happened to me. And then a couple days later, she heard an ad on the radio looking for people that were survivors of clergy abuse. And honestly, I was reluctant to call, given what happened to me and the laws at the time. That was October 8th. So if you notice the timeline, October 13th is when they signed the new law into effect. So I had no idea about this.
Right.
So I called, and they decided to, the law firm that represents me, Jeff Anderson Associates, decided to take my case. And here I'm at like a month and a half later, didn't realize that my case would be they're saying that it's the first case to be filed under this new law, because the new law does not take into effect till January 1st, 2020. But my lawyers had a hand in writing the new law. So I think that's how we were able to submit my case before everyone.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Okay. So, and you were 12 years old when the abuse started?
Started when I was 8, all the way up till I was 12 years old.
Okay. All right. And you went to your family. So this is where that taking care of your heart thing, I just want to talk about this just in case anybody listening has had this experience, right? Where you go to the people that you know and love in your family and they don't know what to do. So tell me about that process and how that felt and how you dealt with it. Cause you're one of the strongest women that I know. You really have this extraordinary inner strength. And I'm just curious if this helped form that strength, or did you pop out of the womb like this? Cause you seem
I don't think I popped out of the womb like this, but I think like every experience kind of like formulates the person that you're going to be. I don't want to say that, because of me being sexually abused that led me to the person, because I feel like you can formulate and be the person you are without any bad things happening to you. Yeah. But I think it helped me realize that I wanted to be a voice for others. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker and whatnot. So I think it kind of solidified that drive in me that, because my voice wasn't being heard, I never wanted to be that person. And I wanted to be that person that people can go to and have their voice heard, and to be that person to share their stories. So I thought it was very important just as a person. And then now, as my career as a filmmaker, to be able to share people's story, because you never know who you're going to be impacting and helping along the way. So I use this negative situation that happened in my life to help be a voice for others that couldn't, be a voice for themselves, that couldn't stand up for themselves, because I know what that's like. And I never wanted anyone to have to go through what I went through.
So I just asked you multiple questions all at once, but back to the original question that I wanted to ask, how did you deal with that at age 8, or whenever you first told your family members and they couldn't be there for you?
It was honestly a very difficult thing for me to kind of handle, because given the fact that I was 8 and then 12, you felt as a kid, you're going through this all alone, and you do the right thing. You're told that anything's wrong, you go to the adults. That's the right thing. And then you expect the adults to take the necessary steps and do the right thing. But then when that didn't happen, I knew in myself that I needed to go elsewhere. I couldn't keep holding that in, because it was just kind of destroying me. I was depressed and whatnot. And I found that, taking that chance, telling someone else outside of my family would be, I might as well go for it. Because at that time, I wasn't losing anything. I was already upset. I was already going through these things. So I told my school minister, and it was a very therapeutic experience, because you have somebody that's not in the circle that you're used to being around, and they're validating that, yes, what happened to you was wrong and we need to do something about it. Because when you as a kid, or when you see things not happening, you feel like you're the one that's guilty, like, oh, they don't value, or they don't take what you're saying as serious as they should. And so when someone took that initiative and did that, it just made, I want to say it took a lot of weight off me, because now the people in my life that should have done something, they had to take accountability for it, and they had to accept that this was wrong. Not saying that they didn't, but they just did not handle it. And at least they were forced to have to deal with it.
It sounds like you all had an ally in the minister, like the minister could take the lead then for all of you.
Yeah.
And it's difficult on everybody's hearts. I feel like I have many friends who were abused, and most of them had the experience of having somebody know even that the abuse was going on. And that almost wears as much on their heart as the abuse does, right? So it's hard when people aren't taking care of your heart. But what an extraordinary thing that man did step forward and take care of your heart.
Yeah, it was just, I think, there are people that come into your life at the right time and right place, and he was definitely one of those people. And I'm glad that I didn't stop telling my story, because had I did, who knows the type of person I'd become. It was just eating me up inside. And I knew that there had to be somebody that, valued what I said and was going to take it seriously to escalate it to the next level. So
I think that's such a great lesson. And I'm pretty passionate about what you exactly just now said. Like I've been doing these series of events with the theme of what the world needs now, which is love, sweet love, obviously, but it's also your story, your heart story. So this is kind of a call to action to say your stories. And I just want to insert here, because it just occurred to me this moment that this is going to go up on Thanksgiving Day. And it's a day that we're around people where this is an opportunity to share stories and to ask people. Sometimes people aren't like you and I. Like you and I are storytellers, right, by nature. But some people aren't natural storytellers, and they need to be asked, about their stories. Telling your story and keep continuing to tell your story, whoever would listen to it, it sounds like the number one healing thing you did for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like, when a lot of people bottle things in, it just it just eats at you, and then one day you're just gonna explode. And more often than not, it's not a good way, And I mean, during this process, I've found some things throughout this process about me not being the only person that this happened to, and I realized along the way, a lot of people knew certain things that could have prevented this happening to me. And, I'm not trying to put any blame on, my family or anybody. I'm just trying to get people to take accountability. If you hear something that's wrong, say something, don't just sweep it under the rug, because you don't know what can happen. You don't know that decision that you're making could impact someone's life. I think sometimes people get so preoccupied with their daily life. As long as it's not having anything to do with them directly at that particular moment, they just ignore it. But if you hear something wrong, say it. If you find out something wrong, don't just keep it in, because what you do at that moment can impact someone for the rest of their life in a good or negative way, I think too, this is what I wish I said during my conference, is that I think, when people do tell you like there's something going on, like the person on the receiving end, I want people to value that information, and not just poo-poo it under the rug, because it's hard enough as a survivor to just come forward and say what happened to them. And then to have that person on the receiving party do nothing is really difficult. It could literally destroy all morale and faith that person has in anybody. So it's very important to take that seriously and take action. So for me, I'm always been like a doer. So it's important for me to encourage people to not just say something, do something, because you telling your story is one thing, but you being able to help prevent this from happening to somebody else is a whole nother thing. That's personally why I came forward, because I didn't know that this was going to happen, to other people, but I knew that it needed to stop because it was wrong. And, and as I've learned, you're usually never the only person that this happens to. These people, right. these pedophiles, they do this all the time, so you have the ability to end that abuse. And so that's kind of like, why I feel like that's important for me, and that's helped me heal throughout the years, is knowing that I can make a change that could impact someone's life in a positive way.
And absolutely you are. The other thing that happens when somebody when it's such a delicate thing to reveal your heart and tell the story of abuse, and then when the person on the receiving end, like you said, not only do they not take that story forward and do something about it, if the victim feels like it landed the wrong way, they could stop telling their story. So it's important how we listen to each other's stories and just take them in, don't judge, reflect the story back to the person, allow the person to have whatever reaction they're having, and just listen. I wish they taught listening even to me. I mean, I'm still learning how to listen. I wish they taught listening in school. And it's really, in a way, it's also witnessing, right? Like, let me witness your heart and what your heart went through.
Completely agree, 100%, because I think in this day and age, like you have the Me Too movement and stuff like that. And it's just like, I feel like a lot of this can be prevented if, we all kind of band together and say, hey, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen. just stop being silent, because I think a lot of the times people are afraid to say something, and then that's when things start to kind of escalate into a bad thing. Not saying that, like this, that it's their fault or anything like that. I'm just encouraging for people to stop being silent. It's stop feeling guilty because it's not your fault. Whoever did whatever crime to you, it's on them, not you. And I think it's important for family members or support system that you have to stop treating the victim like they're some sort of parasite, like there's something wrong with them. Stop making awkward when they're trying to talk to you about it, because it's just, it's unfair that, it happened to them, but the least of you could do is just make it a more comfortable experience.
Well, and for your family, it really happened to all of you. When something like that happens, it happened to your whole family, right? I mean, obviously it happened to you, but the ripple effects are something happened to your family. There was a crisis in your family that wasn't dealt with in the most elegant way, but there was a crisis for everybody. How are they all doing with your coming out with this publicly?
Well, the interesting thing is, I don't know if you know, but there's a new law that protects survivors where they can be anonymous, and they can even take like an alias, and they're protected. You will never find out who they are. I had that choice to do that, but I thought it was very important as a victim / survivor to put myself out there, put my name out there, put my face out there, just so other survivors know that they're not alone. And sometimes I feel like when you read articles and you hear about things on the news and you just hear it as like a John Doe, people dehumanize it,
right?
But if you can see a person's face and know that this happened to somebody, you realize they're not just some John Doe, you take it more seriously. And I had the ability to have the support, maybe not necessarily from people in my family, but, I had a good support group of people saying that, you're doing the right thing. And you don't know how many people that are suffering in silence that you may help someday, Right. So I had to take it, because I'm not the type of person to be wanting to be in front of camera and stuff. That's right. Why I work behind the camera. Right. So, but I just looked at the bigger picture, and I just think about like the kids who may watch this, may not, that will see that, okay, you know what, I'm not in the wrong here. I can come forward,
And you can survive and become successful, and telling your story doesn't have to hurt you. I think that's
exactly why I thought about it too, because, at the end of this, nobody wants to be defined by something tragic or terrible that's happened to them in their life, and I wanted to show people, like, I'm not being defined by what happened to me, you don't have to let it define you. You don't have to let it destroy you. You can rise above it and do something with your life and make a difference, in any small way you want to do it,
Tell us what stories you're telling with your work right now.
Some of the stories that I do, like I'm a documentary filmmaker, and, I pretty much follow people around the world telling their stories, and I think it's very important in this day and age, because you never know, you don't realize the power of film and video and who it can reach. And so I have the ability to work and follow people who are going through some really trying times in their life and be able to show their transition from beginning to end, and it's rewarding for me as a filmmaker, because I know I'm doing something to help someone else, because someone who might be going through the same thing will see this video and then come and get the help they need because they saw this video.
Right. We're seeing a theme here.
Yeah, that is my theme, is, just being a voice for other people, and didn't realize at the time that this would be my theme or mantra until I had a subject I was talking to that was interviewing a couple weeks ago before all this blew up. She asked me, why do you do what you do? What is your reason for what you do? And I had to think about it. And then going through all of this, and I realized, maybe it's because I never had a voice or felt I had a voice, and I knew what that was like. And I wanted to be that voice for people who were afraid to speak up, who are afraid to come forward. And then I realized the impact of what it's like when you come forward and you speak up, and how it helps other people. because I can't tell you, after coming forward about this publicly, like there's been so many people from all walks of life that have been reaching out to me, have been telling me that, you know, I'm so glad what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story. I happen to also be a survivor of blah, blah, blah. I've never told anyone except blah, blah, blah. And then now you. So
Right.
I feel like I'm being part of the solution instead of the problem.
Right. And you're being a receptacle too. That's such a beautiful thing. That's such an honor to be the receptacle of those stories too. And who knows what else you'll do with these stories and storytelling as a result of this. What you're doing is healing hearts by just even the way that you're listening to these people.
Yeah, I think like in this day and age, I mean, there's just so much terrible things out in the news and the media, and so many bad things that are happening in the world, you know, and I like the fact that I have the ability to tell stories that are just people trying to help other people, you know, just genuine good stories, you know. It's nothing about any terrible, you know, serial killers killing people, you know, it's none of that, you know. I'm just telling stories about people being good humans, you know. And I think that's something that we need in this day and age when there's just so much hate and hatred in the world, and just so much, you know, BS with the politics and fighting, and you have all these mass school shootings. It's just nice to tell a different story, you know.
I'm so excited to know you. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And can we actually, so is it only California that has this law right now of all the 50 states?
There is a couple other states like New York that has their own Child Victims Act. I think Chicago might have passed one as well, but you know, they're slowly passing others, you know, throughout the states, you know, but California and I believe New York are like right now leading it.
So now, because I didn't know this until you, so now we're helping spread the word that at least in California, if you were a victim and you have, I'm just clarifying this one more time, 30 years to report it. Is that true?
No, you have 3 years right now. Yeah, it's a 3-year window.
But why are you able to do it in January? I'm not understanding. Isn't the new law expanding the amount of time?
Yes, the new law is expanding. It's going in effect January 1st, 2020. But it's a short window. The last window that there was for victims to come forward despite the statute of limitations was in 2002, I believe. So this is another short window. But you don't know, that window might be expanded, you know. So right now it's just like a temporary window.
Okay, so I don't understand. The thing I'm not understanding is the 3-year thing, because you knew that this was affecting you when you were young.
Okay, so there's 2 ways the statute of limitations apply. So it's either, because the old statute of limitations was you had up to the age of 26 or up to 3 years of realizing that the abuse was happening. So that's or. So say you were, I don't know, like 30 and when you realized the abuse happened, you have up to 3 years from that moment on that you realize. So now this statute of limitation, that increases that window to 6 years upon I believe 6 years upon realization that you notice that the abuse was affecting you. So let's say somebody came forward today and they just finally realized this abuse was happening, and say they're like, I don't know, like 40, I guess, you know, and so that part of the new law would apply to them. So they have 6 years from that moment that they realized that the abuse was happening to them, affecting them, to file suit.
Yeah, I just don't, I mean, but you knew that it was affecting you when you were a kid.
Yeah, so that's why that part of the statute of limitations didn't apply to me. The only thing that applied to me at the time was my age.
Right.
Yeah, so when that ran out, I ran out of both, you know, both phases of the law, you know.
Okay, so there's a window that we know is happening starting in January. And do we know how long that window is going to be until it could potentially be changed?
3 years.
3 years. Okay, so between January 2020 and January 2023.
Yeah.
Oh, 2021, 22. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you never know. They might extend it. But, you know, I really highly encourage other survivors to come forward now, because there's going to probably be a huge log of people filing cases, you know, because of this new law.
Right. Okay. Well, Aimee, thank you for being what I call a superhero of love. You are always out there doing heroic work with your camera, behind the camera, and now you're in front of the camera. Thank you for coming out in front of the camera. Most filmmakers like yourself don't want to be in front of the camera, like you just said, and it's just like, so it's a big deal that you're doing it. I get that.
I appreciate it, and just any opportunity to show other people that, despite whatever people are going through in their daily life or whatever thing that might have happened to them when they were a kid, it doesn't have to define them. They can always, like I said, rise above it and, be a change. They don't have to feel like that's going to define them for the rest of their life. It's not a crutch. You can always turn a negative to a positive, and that's how I've always lived my life. I was not going to let this moment in my life define who I am as a person, and I didn't want to be part of a problem. I wanted to be part of the solution. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And bravo, you are being the solution. And thank you. I hope people hear this and are inspired to step forward and file their own lawsuits, and also to tell their stories wherever they can tell their stories, wherever they can be heard. So thank you, Aimee.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me, and best of wishes to everything that you're doing. And I think what you're doing is great, because you're spreading positivity and love throughout the world, and that's what we need in this day and age, is more spreading of love.
Thank you for coming. Superhero of love, Aimee Galicia Torres. Thank you for being such an incredible storyteller, for going around the world telling the stories of those who cannot necessarily find themselves their own camera to tell their stories, and telling these stories so beautifully. Thank you, superhero of love. And for those of you who want to spread the word about this new law, it allows people to file suit up to age 40, and they have a 3-year window of opportunity. And also there are 3 other states that have child victims acts. That's Pennsylvania, New York, and Minnesota. So help us spread the word. And thank you for coming. If you like the podcast, please help us spread the word there too. Subscribe to it. Tell your friends about it. Rate it. Review it. Thanks, superhero. And happy Thanksgiving.